Hello, hello, and welcome to this edition of the Law Firm Blueprint. I'm one of your hosts, Jay Ruane, and with me, as always, is my man Seth Price over there in the DC, Maryland, Virginia Blue Shark Price Benowitz. That is a mouthful headquarters, and we are joined today by our co-author, which is such a cool thing to get to say. And our co-author of Tiger Tactics 2 CEO Edition, Allison Williams, is with us today. Allison, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, as always, for having me. It's always great to be with my co-authors, and I do love saying that as much as you do.
Amazon best-selling co-author. It's such a
Correct,
cool thing to talk about. So
right?
I'm glad that you're with us. Seth, what do you got for us?
Well, look, Allison, thanks. It's great to have you here. Always great energy in the room or the virtual room. So, one of the things during our coaching series we've been talking to everybody about has been the advantage of a coach is that they get to crowdsource many organizations, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I always just, would love to start off just from your perspective. What are some of the things that you've been coaching now for a minute? What are some of the things in your career as a coach that have sort of gelled as commonalities or things that you can extract that maybe weren't intuitive right up front, but like when you see them over and over again, you're like, yeah, these seem to be truisms that law firms are facing, doing good or bad with.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a great question. I'd say the thing that pops up a lot, and I'd say far more lawyers than not have this issue, is the idea that we want to conserve our resources and we want to save our way into whatever freedom we think we can achieve, right? And trying to get lawyers, including myself when I started this journey, to believe that spending more as an investment in your business was going to net you more than saving in the moment is probably the greatest challenge. And when I say spending more, I'm not just talking about spending on coaching. I'm talking about spending more on talent, spending more on systems, spending more on marketing. The investments in the things that are going to grow your base are as necessary as the things that are going to systematize and streamline your base. So you have to first get it in the door before you can make it as profitable as possible. And lawyers are so concerned about being profitable from the start that they restrict the ability to invest in a business. And oftentimes they stunt their own growth.
Well, look, normally I ask the first few questions to bring Jay in with this because Jay is always sort of banging the drum that lawyers don't capitalize. They don't create these things. And so that in essence, you're tasked as a coach very often dealing with somebody who said, hey, I put my shingle out. I don't want to work for somebody else. And then they'll figure it out as they go. Is that one of the bigger challenges as a coach is figuring out how to take somebody where they're at, where it's not like there's a business plan and you're three-fourths of the way there and you need some help. It's many people are coming without a plan and have just sort of said, hey, I hope the phone rings. I have some marketing in these areas and I'll figure it out as I go along. Has that been one of the bigger challenges is figuring out how to take people who just haven't actually don't have the plan to begin with?
What's a business plan? I went to law school.
Yeah, well, the lack of business plan, ironically, is not the greatest challenge until you probably get to at least $750,000. I mean, I didn't start with a business plan, candidly. I started by just hustling and hustling my way up, and then I got to a certain point where I couldn't get it out of the mud beyond where I was without working more hours than I could conceivably work in a day. But I think a lot of it is that, there is a challenge with not having a plan. But for most lawyers, when they come in, if you're not yet at $1 million growing your law firm, I know this is going to offend people, but it's pretty simple. It might not be easy, but it is pretty simple, right? You're going to play with price. You're going to play with volume, right? You have to have a certain amount of volume of what you're selling to the marketplace. And then you're going to strategically engineer your workforce in a way that helps you to produce the most quantity at the highest price with the lowest margin, right? With the lowest overhead. And once you start to have enough cash to play with, at that point, then you can start really scaling because you can invest in the systems and the marketing that can grow you. But it's the kickstart that a lot of people have a hard time with. And the kickstart is actually not that challenging. It's just doing things that are counterintuitive. It's saying, even though there are 10 lawyers down the street who will do it cheaper, I should be putting myself higher up in the price pool so that people recognize my value at the beginning. And instead of having to sell 10 widgets at $10 each, I can sell one widget at $100 and immediately have far more time, far more energy, far more resources to be able to get where I want to go. And that's the thing that people don't buy into. So it's really getting lawyers to understand the fundamentals of some of these principles to start. And from there, we can engineer a plan and get you there pretty easily.
Yeah, I love that. It's so hard. It took me a long time to learn that message that you have to spend to actually make things happen for you. And I probably only learned it in the last 5 years, where I've really been able to accelerate. But the question I have for you is, and I got to know you through your Facebook group, the Law Firm Mentor Movement, which I think is a fantastic community. And then I got to know you through the Maximum Lawyer community, and that's how we connected and stuff. But you've had such a unique experience being able to look into all of these legal entrepreneurs who, like, they find a group, then they start digging in deep. And I'm sure you've had the same experience that we've had in the Law Firm Blueprint, where a new member of the group will then start commenting on stuff that's 2 years old. And you're like, why am I being tagged in this post? Because somebody has gone deep into the threads in your group. And I love seeing that sort of exuberance and that enthusiasm to get, to really attack, the legal entrepreneurship. But with that comes sort of a problem that I have found. I'm wondering if you've experienced it, because so many people I know, they are blissfully unaware of any sort of entrepreneurship. And then all of a sudden they scratch the surface and they go deep, and they want to go deep into marketing, deep into systems, deep into sales, and deep into systemizing their whole practice all the way through the trials. And as somebody who has helped people go from brand new to well established, do you find that you have to temper some of that enthusiasm? And if you do, where do you think the best return is for young, or not even young, but new legal businesses to start? Because they can't do everything all at once, right?
Yeah. So that's a wonderful question. And I love that you teed it up with people that go deep, right? Because lawyers love to do that, right? We, and I say we because I'm in the pool, right? As are you, as a Seth, right? We love to research, we love to learn things, we love to figure things out, we love to get into the nitty-gritty. And so many times the people that go into all of that minutiae get off the beaten path, right? And the path is really the most important thing. And it is the hardest thing you will ever learn as a business owner, is what not to do, right? That sexy new thing that looks so inviting. If I could just, there's this funnel over here. If I could just get that funnel and install it in my business, I'll be a multimillionaire tomorrow, right? And it doesn't happen that way. And not because the funnel doesn't work, but because the funnel is engineered to work in a certain way at a certain time in a certain process. And you have a different way, a different time, and a different process, right? So you have to break other things that are already working in order to install the new thing. And so it's a level of discipline that most of us don't have until we have been burned enough by our own enthusiasm to be able to say, hey, well, no, that's not now, right? Great idea. We'll put a pin in it and we'll come back to it, right? And getting people not to see that, getting people to see that the new thing is not the answer right away is really challenging. And to the answer of how, what to focus on, it's going to depend on where you are. But I always tell people, you cannot grow a business without money. You have to be chronically aware of how much is coming in and what's going out. And in order to do that, you have to think about where you are right now. Right now might not be the time for you to spend money on marketing. Right now might need the time that you have to go out and bust your ass to make connections with people to get it in the door free. That might be your stage. Or you might be at the stage where you're already at multiple sevens and you have a budget, but you're spending your budget on dead weight talent. And if you just made your systems more efficient and had better performance of the folks that are already good talent and let go of dead wood talent, you could take that money and invest it in marketing and really get some scale. So it's proper diagnosis is always at the start of everything, right? We always start with a business plan when you come into our coaching company, but it really is key that people stop themselves before they just react to go get to the next thing, right? That's always the key.
And when I look at myself, I didn't have any plan for the first million. It was basically scrap by to get, to bring stuff in however it was. For me, it was digital. For other people, it's other things. One of the things that I've noticed, and putting on the Blue Shark hat for a minute, was that generally, until people get to about 400,000 in revenue, they don't have the resources needed to do more advanced digital work or other things. What are some of the things that you've seen work for people when they're trying to get to that first 500,000? They don't have a lot to invest. Are there any sort of sweat equity hacks that you've seen? And again, it's different for each practice area, each person, et cetera. But what are some of the success stories you've seen where people have been able to use sweat equity to get themselves that launch pad where they now have the resources to start investing, assuming that they're not coming out of pocket in, to an extensive amount?
Yeah, well, it's the functional equivalent of digital marketing, but just before we had digital marketing, and it's really getting on stage. I tell people all the time, most people have a hard time believing this, but I am still a recovering introvert. I still get the heebie-jeebies if the room has too many people, and I don't like to go into a room and be the cocktail party maven. But once upon a time, in addition to being an introvert, I was also very shy and very uncomfortable with people. That has changed. But when that was a real thing for me, the only way that I could market and get in front of a lot of people to get my desired outcome was to get on stage. Because if I could go in front of a room full of people who were not my adversaries, right? I'm not talking about going to teach CLE to people who do what you do and are competing for the same client. I'm talking about getting in front of companion complementary audiences, right? Family lawyers getting in front of criminal defense lawyers, child abuse lawyers getting in front of family lawyers, personal injury lawyers getting in front of immigration lawyers. And if you could get in front of people and just impress them enough that they have a problem that they are either not aware of or that they're aware of that they don't know how it needs to be solved. And you could say, I've got the answer to solve this problem. If you send your people to me, I will make you the star, right? You will be celebrated because you can say to your client, I'm going to hand you over to this expert. This expert is going to solve your problem. And this expert and I are going to work together to get you the best outcome in the case that you already have with me. When lawyers heard that, they're like, oh, wait, this person is not just going to do a great job for my client. This person is going to sell my client on me. This client is going to get my client that much more invested in me. That's the win that the lawyer is looking for, right? Yeah, as lawyers, we want to do a good job for our clients. We want the win. We want the good accolade. We want the outcome. But what we really want is more business. And so how do you get more business? You get really amazing, happy clients. And then you teach people how to scale their happiness clients, right? The people that are already happy, get them happier. That is a lot easier than taking unhappy people and getting them happy. And if you create a process around that and you teach it to people, it becomes very easy for you to get on stage and just copy and paste the same presentation over and over again. And I started doing that. And moment after moment, I started to see, all right, this is a $30,000 stage. This is a $50,000 stage. This is an $80,000 stage. And then I could just multiply my stages. And once I did that, it became very easy to make a few $100,000 in a couple of months, right? Because I'm having one presentation that's going to open the floodgates. And you teach that to people, especially when they don't have digital marketing budgets, because before they have the budget, they need to learn how to do that. And then when they have the budget, they need to learn how to do that even better so that they can help a digital marketing company who can then put them on a virtual stage and mass produce that same strategy.
And then Jay, just before I flip to you for the next question, I got to say, I saw this in action. I saw you when you did the My Shingle, got on stage, and I had never seen somebody own the room that well. So it's great. It's great to tell people to do something, but I've seen you actually, it is walking into a market where you're not known and being able to be there, captivate a group, and get those connections. It's something that, again, it probably wasn't as good day one, but just the idea that when you have more time than money, and just, as a testament to have seen, you may be coaching people to do this, but you've actually done this yourself and walked that walk.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that I loved about that last piece that you said was that, you may not have a lot of money, but you probably have more time. And it's sort of on a continuum. As you're starting out, you've got plenty of time and not a lot of money. But then the money grows and your time goes down. And eventually you're going to get to a place where you got a lot more money than you have time. And that's where I was at a point in my career where I said, now I need to figure out how I can actually buy back my time. and delegate and bringing people to do things. So I'm getting that. But one of the things that you said that was really interesting about getting on that stage, do you think, or do you counsel people or coach people that it's so much easier to do that when you have a defined niche rather than being a general purpose lawyer? Because one of the reasons I was able to, I think, be successful with my referral practice early on in my career is I could approach that general practice firm and say, hey, look, you can send me your DUI trials because guess what? I'm not going to cannibalize that probate, the bankruptcy, the car accident, the other criminal cases because I want this stuff. And so many people are like, hey, I want to hang a shingle and do PI and bankruptcy and also some criminal, low-level criminal, and I'll do a couple divorces because they're so afraid of giving up a revenue stream that they give up the bigger revenue stream and have all these little piddly ones, right?
Yeah. So niching is definitely much easier. It's much easier and it's much faster. And in fact, I did that somewhat unknowingly in my practice. So most people know I'm a family lawyer, but what's unique about my practice is that it's focused in child abuse and neglect. And that's the practice area. That's the redheaded stepchild of the redheaded stepchild of the redheaded stepchild of law, right? And so people were like, oh, I'm not working for $50 an hour. I was like, me neither. I charge my child abuse clients $500 an hour. That was what it was back then, and now it's even higher. And I said, I'm gonna command this in the marketplace. So the fact that there were only 2% of people who were not eligible for public defender services that had my practice area, I'm like, great, I got 2% to play with. New Jersey's a big state, 2% is more than enough for me. And then I corner the market on that. But then when I'm talking to family lawyers, I could say to them, listen, I'm a very good matrimonial attorney, but I am not going to be your client's matrimonial attorney. I will sign an agreement with you that your client under no circumstance will ever become a client of my firm in any level of family law service, absent your decision and absent your invitation. So that when I'm over here being expert at what I do, I will tell them, as exceptional as I am at this thing over here, you've got an even better divorce attorney over there. And that, again, elevates you, right? So a lot of this is really about selling. And again, most lawyers don't like to think of themselves as salespeople, but if you own a business, you're in the business of sales, right? With no sales, you have no business. And once you recognize that all you have to do is create a compelling message to the person you're speaking to get them on board with whatever it is you want to do, you can sell millions very easily without having to spend a lot of money, without having to make up stuff. And to your point, Jay, without having that risk of we're all competing for the same client. Like, no, I'm not your competitor. I'm your ally. I'm your salesperson. I'm your marketing agent. I am your resource. You do 15 things. I do one thing. I just need to do this one thing for your person and send that person back to you. That's all, right? Now, for the generalists, it is harder to grow a firm, but no one is truly a generalist anymore if we think about it. Like, even if you have 4 or 5 practice areas, there are 80 other practice areas that you don't have. So you can still grow in general practice. It is more challenging that you're not the chief in your pool, right? That you're not the big fish. But there are ways to make yourself a specialist in 2 or 3 or even 4 areas, as long as you do it with a strategic plan. And we always say start with one and then create ancillary related niches around it, instead of I'm only going to do this thing over here, especially if you don't have money to start, because you got to eat, right? Yeah. And some lawyers are so, I'm in love with personal injury, that's all I want to do. I'm like, well, okay, but here's the thing: until those cases settle, you can't eat your desires. Okay, you can't eat your dreams. You can't pay the rent with your hopes and your wishes, right? You gotta get money in the door. So it really is very individualized based on what the firm has going on. But you can do it either way. But niching is always easier.
So you talked a little bit about capitalization before. We talked about niching. What are some of the mistakes that you see people making that hold them back, trying to add the most value? Like if you crowdsourced it and you could sort of, grab people and pull them back, what do you see people doing that you wish they hadn't done before they got to you?
Well, when you and I have talked about this before, Seth, and Jay, I think this was a conversation that the 3 of us had, it's always hiring down the food chain. I always tell people, don't hire a baby lawyer. Okay, babies need to eat. Babies suck off of you. Babies don't give to you. don't have a baby and think that you're going to grow America's next top law firm. You're disserving the profession by bringing in lawyers that you don't have time to train. You are disserving your business interests by bringing in a lawyer who's going to require more from you than they can give to your business. And then you're spending so much time and energy training up this person, typically at no cost, right? You're paying them, but they're not generating revenue. You're spending all that time investing in this person at no profit for your business. And then you're underserving your clients because your clients still expect you to serve them at the level that you promised. You're out of integrity with what you can do. So you have to be willing to pay more for better talent. But here's the thing: better talent commands a higher hourly rate. Better talent can produce more. Better talent needs less of your time and attention. Better talent can pick up the ball and run without you. Better talent is worth more and it produces more. And if you can get lawyers to see that, that's like the number one thing we focus on, right?
It's like you're speaking directly to Jay right now.
Jay, you have a firm full of baby lawyers.
This is a conversation that Seth would scream at me on our private phone calls over like a 15-year period, being like, why are you hiring these brand new out of law school kids? Then you train them, and then guess what? You train them after a year, and then they go and they leave you because they're valuable to another firm because they've got your training. I right now, between prosecutors and public defenders in the state of Connecticut, have 17 former employees who've been hired by the prosecutors or the public defenders in the state of Connecticut. Now, they've stayed in the criminal space, which is good. And
you did working a good job cases for someone else.
Exactly. And so it's funny, in the last couple of years, we've only hired people with experience now. And
the irony is of how things flip is, as our firm, we have 45 lawyers now. We are now at the point in certain practice areas where we can't get the talent in numbers at the place I want them, where I've always advocated. And there becomes a point much later than being a solo where you have more resources than you have talent, where you actually start a training program to bring those people up to speed. And it is interesting
Seth,
how it goes like this. So it's not like there's one size fits all, but for somebody who's always advocated 3rd to 8th year as the sweet spot, I'm now finding with law school becoming less in vogue, law school debt and the nonprofit payback process taking other people off the table, that there are areas where you may not have any choice, but it is not, you are now going to have to go at a 2 to 3 to 1 just to get that one person that might be there 9 months from now.
Yeah. So Seth, I want to add a caveat. Thank you for saying that, because I don't want to make it sound like you should never, ever in the ownership of a law firm hire a younger attorney. I very much believe in our profession. And one of the things I think is a little bit unique about Law Firm Mentor, and me in particular over other coaching companies, is that while business, in my view, is quintessentially valuable and we have to focus on it, I don't believe we should focus on it to the superior concern or to the detriment of our profession. I believe we are professionals first. And because of that, I do believe you have a responsibility to our profession. Now, having said that, a younger attorney can be great for a law firm, but you do need to have the resources to be able to train up that lawyer so they are ethically compliant and so that they are a good member of our profession. And that may mean you have to have everything built out first, right? So if you as the owner are not economically dependent on work, like you don't have to work in the company in order that you can make your bills, and you have people who can do the work full time, and then you want to bring in a younger attorney who can be trained by one or some or all. I have an attorney who's been with us now since the beginning of her career. She's in her 3rd year. She's amazing, right? But I had attorneys in my firm who were capable, based on the time allocation, based on an economic model that we created to have time to train, have that person have the ability to learn. All of that was structured out in a way that it didn't harm our profitability. That's what I'm talking about, right? So in other words, not just, I need some help, so let me go get somebody and I'll just dump this work on this person who doesn't know what to do with it. That's the problem. That's where a lot of lawyers fall into the danger zone.
And you can almost take those words out and talk about international labor the same way. Absolutely. If you're dying on the vine, that international person may be dangerous if you don't have the Ruane systems in place. But that So let me ask you this: we talked about bad things issues that people come with. What are some of the things that you see consistently for firms that are getting it? Because we both have seen them. I saw you early on. When you see somebody and you're like, man, I wish I could bet on that person. What are the commonalities of the clients that you get that are here that you see take off?
Yeah, so that's another great question. I would say the clients that are the real success stories, the ones that say, like, if I could copy and paste that person and be where they are, the ones who come in at 200,000 and in 2 years they're at 1 million, right? Those folks almost invariably are the ones who are willing to bear through the discomfort of following advice that doesn't seem applicable, right? We have had any number of clients who come in who say, I'm a business attorney, right? I sell incorporations of businesses. I provide business advisory services. My clients typically have employment law issues, or they have business to business issues. That's what I do. And they say, how do I apply what you're doing? Because you're a family lawyer. And I tell them, well, right now we have 87 practice areas in Law Firm Mentor. So I assure you it is not built for family law attorneys, right? It is built for personal injury attorneys. It is built for criminal defense attorneys. It is built for real estate attorneys, PACA attorneys, cannabis attorneys, and so forth. It's business, right? Business is business. But when people say, I want to be successful, almost invariably we say, you have to follow a blueprint. So you help us define what it is that you want. We will help you define a goal. And then that blueprint has to be something that you marry yourself to, even when it's uncomfortable. Even when you're saying, the easiest thing for me to do is go sell myself. Why do I have to pay someone to sell in my law firm? Or the easiest thing for me to do is to go to court. I have a higher hourly rate than my person down the road who has, who's $50 an hour less. Why can't I go make some money real quick? Because that does not fit your blueprint. That will get you somewhere, but it is not the blueprint that we have engineered that is going to give you the highest profit in the least amount of time. You have to be willing to do things that are uncomfortable, and that means stepping out on faith. And if you don't agree to do that, you're going to have fits and starts, right? You're going to go down a road, make some money, backslide. You're going to make some more money. You're going to backslide. You're going to hire somebody, you're going to backslide. And that back and forth is what wears lawyers out, right? The ones that quit are not the ones who are not smart and not growing, right? It's the people who believe that once I get past this moment of discomfort, I hire that first person I didn't think was the right one, but I hired them and they made me a lot of money. Now I get to do it the easy way. Now I can take the foot off the gas. Now I can stop all of this spending money. I can just go back to being myself, and you can't. That's the thing that sucks. You have to grow into your next iteration, and you have to keep growing. You do not get to stop. And as soon as you stop, I think of it, I use the analogy like the jet ski, right? If you're in movement on a jet ski, what happens when you suddenly take your hands off the gas, right? The water knocks you over. Because the water is moving up behind you because you have put it in motion. You have put the entirety of your business in motion, and now you are in the air riding the waves. And as soon as that water comes up behind you and you have stopped, right? You've got the wave of employee raises coming up behind you. You have the wave of increased malpractice premiums coming up behind you. You have the wave of increased visibility on your website, and hence more of your adversaries and perhaps your competitors out there looking to see if they can make a complaint against you and perhaps have you investigated by the Office of Attorney Ethics, right? You have all of those things coming up at you. But if you stop, those things will ram into you and knock you over. And then you'll take a deep breath. You'll say, okay, I just need to rest a little while. I just want to get comfortable. What happens? You're in the water now. Your jet ski has been knocked over. You have to now spend your time while you are choking on water, while you are going under, while the sharks are circling you. You have to put your jet ski back upright. You have to get your wet body back on top of the jet ski. You have to somehow find your way to put your hands back on the gas, and you have to summon the courage. And most people don't. Most people build half-ass companies that are just good enough. They're never going to get to where they want to be because they don't agree to keep going. That's the problem.
I love that. If you take nothing else, folks, just listen to that last 3 minutes 3 or 4 times, because this is hard. This is hard work. Everyone I know wants it to be easy, but the successful people I know recognize it's hard work and it doesn't stop. And they're constantly working on this. But as another thing, I'm off to Turks and Caicos next week, and now I don't know if I want to get on a jet ski. I was gonna do that, and now I'm wondering if I want to do that because I don't want to get knocked off my jet ski because I'm the guy who'll let go and see what happens, which I've done in my firm. Hey, let's turn off. I did this back in, I don't know, 2005. I said I'm turning off pay-per-click for the summer. Let's see what happens, and boy, that was a mistake. You know,
But the flip side is you turned off Avo at one point, and it wasn't.
Exactly. And that's the thing. You got to be willing to take risks and take chances and doing that. That was, I mean, this has been a fantastic session, Allison. Thank you so much for being with us. Seth, do you have any final questions?
No, this is Allison. Thank you so much. And I think that last segment, I'm going to go back and turn into a clip for our firm.
Yeah, I think I think that's the message that everybody out there needs to get. And Allison, of all the coaches this summer, Allison really has set it straight for everybody. This is not easy what we're doing, but it's worth doing. It can be lucrative if you keep working at it, and you get to, control your own destiny. And those are three things that 99% of the world can't say that they can do, but we can. And I think y'all should listen to Allison because if you're willing to put in the work, you're willing to get there.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. It was an honor when you asked, and it was an honor also, Jay, particularly to you when you invited me to be one of the co-authors of Tiger Tactics CEO, because, we all have a different perspective. We all come at this in slightly different ways, but we all have some of those same foundational principles, like, the idea that you cannot stop. And a lot of those things are what I think really inspires the next generation of law firm owners to become true law firm CEOs. That's kind of the point of it. And that's one of the great values that you brought to the world by the conception of the idea.
Awesome. All right, folks, that's going to do it this week here. Oh, by the way, I do love the name drop. The law firm, the blueprint. You need a blueprint. I mean, we're staring at my screen over here. I mean, that's just, thank you so much for that. I'm gonna isolate that and drop that into an ad or something. But yeah, thank you so much for being with us, Allison. Folks, thank you so much for being with us each and every week here in the Law Firm Blueprint. Of course, if you want to take us on the go, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. YouTube podcast is now a thing. There's always Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I don't know where you get them, but you can find us by searching up the Law Firm Blueprint and give us a 5-star review. Of course, you can catch us live every week, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, in our Facebook group, the Law Firm Blueprint, as well as on LinkedIn. So be sure to follow us, be sure to engage, ask those questions. We'll be sure to bring them up in a future show. Thanks again to our wonderful and lovely guest, Allison Williams, the law firm mentor, and of course, Seth Price for being with me. Folks, that's going to do it for us. Bye for now.